Every single day, your entire supply of blood gets filtered dozens and dozens of times. It's pretty incredible. So today, we're going to take a trip through the tiny, microscopic powerhouse that makes it all happen, the nephron. Okay, let's dive into this amazing purification system. So let's just start with a fact that is going to blow your mind. Your kidneys process about 180 liters of fluid from your blood every day. I mean, that's enough to fill a bathtub. But you only get rid of about 1.5 liters as urine. So what on earth happens to the other 99%? The answer to that question, well, that's the key to understanding this entire system. And the hero of our story is this little guy right here, the nephron. It might not look like much, but you have about 1 million of them in each kidney, and they are all working 24/7. These are the real functional units, the individual little stations where all the filtering, the reabsorbing, and the secreting happens. To really get this, let's think of the nephron less like a simple filter and more like a super high-tech purification and recycling plant. We're going to follow a single drop of fluid as it goes through, and we're going to focus on 3 questions. What gets taken out? What gets put back in? And where does all this happen? The whole journey basically happens in 3 main stages. First up, you've got this huge non-selective filtration. Then, a super efficient reabsorption of anything your body wants to keep. And, finally, a targeted secretion of any last bits of waste. Let's break each one down. So our journey kicks off with what I like to call the big squeeze. This is where pretty much everything gets forced out of the blood, all under pressure. And it all starts in this tiny little ball of capillaries called the glomerulus. Okay, so the most important thing to get about this first step, filtration, is that it is not picky at all. Honestly, think of it like a colander in your kitchen. High blood pressure physically shoves water and anything small enough to fit through the holes right out of the blood and into the start of the nephron. And this image shows you exactly how it works. That tangled ball of vessels, that's the glomerulus, that's our colander. The pressure inside forces all the small stuff into that cup-like structure, catching it, which is called Bowman's capsule. And that fluid that's just collected inside, it's now called nephric filtrate. Now, what's really important is that the big stuff, like your red blood cells and large proteins, they're too big to fit, so they stay behind in the blood. So, what exactly gets squeezed out? What is initially lost from the blood? Well, a whole lot of good stuff, actually. Tons of water, valuable nutrients like glucose and amino acids, essential salts, and, of course, the waste product we actually want to get rid of, which is mainly urea. So the problem now is that the body basically just threw out the baby with the bathwater. And that brings us to the most critical stage of this whole journey, reabsorption. This is where we answer our second question, what gets put back? Well, this is where the body frantically starts pulling almost everything it just threw out right back into the blood. Remember that question we started with? Where did the other 99% of all that fluid go? Right here, an absolutely incredible 99% of the water, along with a ton of other valuable stuff, is reabsorbed. I mean, talk about efficiency. And the first stop on this reclamation tour answers our third question. Where does this happen? Well, most of it happens right away in what's called the proximal tubule. Your body uses energy to actively pull back 100% of the glucose and amino acids. And then a ton of water and salts just follow along naturally through osmosis. This is where all of our most vital supplies are saved from being lost. Okay, next up, our filtrate, which is now missing most of its valuable nutrients, enters this very specialized structure. It's called the loop of Henle, and its entire job is to just fine-tune the body's water and salt balance. And this is just a brilliant biological design. So, follow the arrow down the descending loop. The walls here let water pass through easily. So as the fluid goes deeper into the salty kidney tissue, water gets pulled out and reabsorbed. But then on the way back up the ascending loop, the rules totally change. The walls suddenly become waterproof, but they start actively pumping salt out of the filtrate. It's this amazing system that lets the body reabsorb even more water and precisely controls salt levels. All right, so we've squeezed everything out, we've taken back all the good stuff. But there's one last step. The body takes a final look at the blood running next to the tubule and decides, you know what, let's actively toss out a few more pieces of trash. And this is called secretion. Now, unlike filtration, which was passive, it just happened because of pressure, secretion requires energy. It's the body using active transport to very selectively grab specific waste products from the blood and just dump them directly into the fluid that's on its way out. This last bit of cleanup happens mostly in the distal tubule. So what's lost in this final step? Things like excess hydrogen ions, which helps regulate your blood's pH. Other waste products like creatinine, and even traces of drugs, like penicillin. This is literally the body's last chance to clean house. Okay, we are at the final stage. The fluid has been filtered, the good stuff has been reabsorbed, and extra waste has been secreted into it. All that's left now is to make the final adjustments based on how hydrated you are and officially turn this stuff into urine. The fluid from a bunch of different nephrons now all flows into one common collecting duct. Think of this as the final checkpoint, the very last place where reabsorption happens. And here, depending on your body's needs, are you dehydrated or have you been drinking water all day? Hormones will control exactly how much more water gets reabsorbed. This final water reclamation is what concentrates all the leftover waste into what we now call urine. So, let's just put this all together. This slide is the perfect summary. On the left, you've got what was initially filtered out, a mix of good and bad stuff. And on the right, you see the final product. So let's answer our key questions one last time. What was reabsorbed? All of the glucose and amino acids. What's ultimately lost in your urine? Well, a lot less water, some salts, and highly concentrated wastes like urea, uric acid, and creatinine. And this really gets to the heart of why any of this matters. As the source material says so well, the kidneys are the body's main organs of homeostasis and excretion. This entire journey we just followed, it's all about maintaining that perfectly stable internal environment that your body needs to survive. It's a constant, delicate balancing act. This incredibly complex process of filtration, reabsorption, and secretion, it's happening millions of times over in your body right now, this very second, just keeping everything in perfect balance. It really makes you think, doesn't it? This delicate balance is the absolute foundation of your health. So what happens when it fails?